Hi, everybody, and welcome back. So we were having a question about ownership data, and I think it was Joanna, and I'm not sure. Oh yeah, great. Joanna's back. So the land registry is a great source of ownership data, but the only problem is they use legally accurate maps, which really seem to bear very, very little relationship to reality on the ground. I've experienced that with a tiny bit of land that I own next to my garden, and the boundary of the land is very different to the land registry's boundary data, and we'd have to get the whole of the village resurveyed to do anything about that. So yeah, ownership data is problematic, and it's probably something that's best dealt with individually. So sorry about that, Joanna. I see we've got some more chats coming up, so I'm just going to open the chat window. That's people saying hi. So here we go. So Terry, my question before you answered it, have you heard of the 330-300 rule by Dr. Cecil Konijnendijk? If my Dutch is appalling. I haven't heard that rule referred to as that. Can you, so Terry, could you tell us more about that? Oh, Terry, I think you're muted there. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, thank you very much.
No worries.
Do you know how to pronounce Cecil's surname?
Honestly, I've heard everyone butcher it on every single webinar that I've ever been on, and I haven't. So I think it's Konijnendijk, but that's pretty much it. So the rule, he basically came up with that recently, and he said at least 3 trees should be visible from every home, and every neighborhood should have 30% tree canopy, and nobody should live more than 300 meters away from a larger park or green space. And that's pretty much, I think he just mentioned it in February. So it's fairly recent, but yeah, I just thought if you have heard about it or not, was my question really.
I hadn't, and thank you so much for sharing that. Now, we in Wales, we're looking at I think what's been recommended is a 20% canopy cover, urban canopy cover, because that's in various forestry standards, that's the threshold for a woodland. Mm-hmm. So that's what's been suggested for Wales. And obviously we've got our accessible natural green space standards, which are referred to alongside the Fields in Trust standards for access to playing fields in Technical Advice Note 16. So that's actually a recommended standard, and that 300 meters buffer, 400 meters actual walk, or a 5-minute time distance away from green space is what's recommended in Wales as planning legislation. So it seems to be, you know, in the same ballpark as Dr. Konijnendijk's suggestions. So I'd say, yeah, he's come up with a really nice little mnemonic there, and certainly one that I would support from my experience.
Great. All right. Thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
And Laura has asked. Oh, brilliant! So thank you very much. Helen's reposted that. Have we got any further questions? I'm just trying to translate Dr. Konijnendijk's. So Konijnen sounds like something to do with rabbits. So I wonder if it's Rabbit Bank, or maybe his surname would transliterate to Warren in English. Anyway, that's some speculation. So I'm just going to give folk. Oh, here we go. So Joanna's raising her hand there.
Yeah. Hi. I've got a question about. I think it relates to some of the other data sets which are now available about where perhaps we should prioritize interventions in relation to air quality. how does this data set interact with those other ones? And do you think it can be used in some of the clean air planning that's happening at local authority level at the moment?
The thing with data sets is, I mean, probably everybody on here is too young to remember, but when I was doing my teacher training course, we used to have to write things out on clear acetate sheets, and we'd overlay them on top. And that's still a bloody sight easier than using some GIS applications. But that all a data set is really is a sophisticated kind of acetate sheet. So this could be used in combination with just about any data set. Now, when it comes to air quality, then you're looking at changes in concentrations of some of the most damaging pollutants, which occur over levels of 1 meter or less. Now, of course, you can map things. For example, like things I've seen in France and in bits of London are very, very low hedges of a species like box, an evergreen with very tiny leaves, which are in between the roadway and the footway or cycle path. So basically they act as to slow down the exhaust, and some of the particles are going to either get trapped on the leaves of the plant, or it's just going to fall out of the air because the air is not moving fast enough to support those particles. So you can map that kind of thing. You can use computer-aided design, which will interface with GIS to map stuff on that kind of a small scale. When you're looking at concentrations of pollutants on a much, much larger scale, then already even bigger scale GIS data sets have been used by, I can't remember if it was the Natural Capital Committee for England, but they looked at the overall amount of green space and tree canopy cover, and they worked out a national estimate for the amount of particulate matter that was being removed by our national woodlands. So the answer is, yeah, you could use this data set, but it would be much, much better to focus in on areas where you think there's a potential problem. For example, like safe walking routes to schools, and then to actually take a proper walk, or even just do a Google Street Map drive through those sites, and actually use those when you're planning green space interventions. The best way to stop people getting hurt by particulate air pollution is to stop the particulate air pollution in the first place. So green space can only ever ameliorate it. It can never prevent it. So that's a long-winded way of saying yes and no. All right, there's a few more questions have come up. So Marie is saying, looking at the data of GI, it should not be looked at in isolation, and should look into other socio-environmental aspects in order to get a better standing of the correlation between GI and other factors. Yeah, abso-flipping-lutely. Yeah, definitely. Right. So we're getting perilously close to coffee time. I'm happy to stick around for way longer if people would like. There may be a short blip while I try and copy the link to Dr. Kinninendijk's URL here. Try and copy that. I'm going to paste it in a note before it vanishes. Good. So I'm going to say, if there are no further questions, then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to process the video recording of our presentation, our first discussion, and edit out all the chuntering from me at the start, and then I'm going to post it onto YouTube. Now that usually takes me about a day. So hopefully this presentation will be available with the first half of the discussion session in a day or so on our YouTube channel. And so there's nobody else with their hands up, and there's just some very nice messages in the chat to say thanks So I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody for coming along today, and hope you have a great week, and goodbye for now until we meet again.